Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says a proposal for a new oil pipeline in Canada is highly likely. His words.
Well, I wouldn't trust a word coming out of Mark Carney's mouth, but an oil pipeline is definitely in the works, and it's likely going to be between Alberta and the United States. Possibly Keystone XL, given that Trump indicated his interest in reviving this pipeline, which Biden killed in 2020. Premier Danielle Smith has also hinted, multiple times, that she's been in consistent talks with members of the cabinet from the Trump administration, particularly Doug Burgum, to advance cross-border oil production, energy security, and the further integration of Alberta energy with the American industry.
Former Energy Secretary under Donald Trump, Dan Brouillette, joins me now. So, Dan, if it happens, and that's a big if, what does that mean for American energy?
Well, it's a really big if, David. Thanks for having me this morning. Look, the bottom line is a new east-west coast pipeline in Canada is good for Canadians. It's good for world markets in that we have access to more supply. But I think you have to look at this through a political lens. Canada is in a tough situation. It's very dependent upon U.S. refiners and U.S. refinery markets. So a lot of their oil comes to the U.S. And given the conversations that are occurring today around import duties and tariffs, this could be seen as a hedge against that conversation with the United States. The real bottom line here is that unless a private sector player steps up and helps finance this pipeline, it's going to have the same outcome as perhaps many of its predecessors. It's going to die a slow death.
Look, Mark Carney's many things, mostly negative, and I've called him at least 90% of those things on this channel. But one thing he isn't is naive or dumb. Unlike Prime Minister Fancy Socks Trudeau before him, this guy isn't just a useful idiot who's mostly clueless and just acting as a figurehead for the World Economic Forum and other globalist multinational organizations. You all know the ones. Carney sees the writing on the wall when it comes to Alberta and how if he doesn't let Albertans have at least one concession and the long overdue proverbial win, the desire for separation is only going to continue to increase as the tolerance for the status quo in Alberta is at an all-time low. Danielle Smith, as the politician that she is also capitalizing on this. Many people, myself included, believe that she's trying her best to play the middle, not come out and fully support independence from Canada, but taking steps to remind the feds that the threat of Alberta independence is real, and she'll try to extract as many concessions as she can from that, including big energy projects like a west-east pipeline. She's also expressed her intent to have Canada open the Constitution to create some reforms that will make things more equal for Alberta. All of this enabled by the independence threat. Do I agree with her methods? Not necessarily. But do I understand them? You bet. It's the old Quebec technique. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, if you will. Except most Albertans who support independence ain't really bluffing.
Today marks an important step forward in uniting our country as Alberta joins forces with Ontario to pursue our shared goals of economic growth, opportunity, and prosperity. We're signing 2 memorandums of understanding that will see us advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy and critical minerals to markets across Canada and across the world. Today's signing marks an historic partnership founded in a mutual ambition to reach the full potential of our provinces, to grow our list of global customers for our energy resources, and to achieve long-term prosperity for all Canadians.
Friends, this is how we protect Canada. We need to protect together to unlock the country's full potential. We need to build infrastructure that will bind Canada together and support workers in every part of the country. We need to respect and celebrate every province, every territory, and do everything in our power to help workers, businesses, and communities thrive. I'm honored to do my part to help the amazing people of Alberta. And I thank my friend, Premier Smith, for helping the people of Ontario. We're going to keep working to build Canada. We're going to stand united. We're going to protect the true north, strong and free.
Except the true north is not strong and it's the farthest thing from free nowadays. So they sent out Fat Dougie, Doug Ford, as part of the new Canada-Alberta Outreach Program. A diplomatic effort, if you will, to try to appease Albertans and make them feel that they're not alone in this fight and they're being heard. I don't buy it, obviously. Doug Ford couldn't care less about Alberta, and that's been proven over the many years he's been in government, having never advocated in favor of our province. Hell, quite the opposite. If anything, he was buddy-buddies with Trudeau for political gain and never did anything to help advance the energy industry in Alberta or Saskatchewan. But they expect us to believe that he suddenly had an epiphany and is an ally of Alberta, now that the province is moving towards leaving Canada. How convenient. Here's Premier Smith a few weeks back reminding the rest of Canada why at this point, pipelines being built is a matter of Alberta staying or leaving Canada.
Why tie the issue of getting a commitment for an oil pipeline to national unity?
Well, you have to understand just how damaged Alberta is by the fact that we didn't get pipelines built. If we had built Northern Gateway, if we'd built Keystone and we'd built Energy East, we'd have 2.5 million barrels more per day of production, which is $55 billion a year worth of GDP value, which is worth $17 billion to my government alone and about an equal amount to the federal government. So this is not just an ideological argument. It's not just a minor disagreement. Oil is by far the most valuable export for Canada. Any of the projects that you will see on the ultimate list, I will tell you that a bitumen pipeline will be by far the greatest benefit to all of Canada. That's why we're going to continue to push for it, because it's a good project. It's good for our country. There's $9 trillion worth of value in discoverable and achievable reserves right now. And so why would you leave that in the ground? No other country in the world would, and we shouldn't either.
You see, I'm fairly cynical when it comes to politicians, so my view is that they're not choosing to leave it on the ground out of a real concern for the planet, more than they have their own agendas in which Alberta, being an energy superpower, doesn't really benefit their own personal goals. Carney knows that crude oil isn't going anywhere anytime soon. He doesn't really believe in that whole climate emergency fairy tale. If he did, he wouldn't have invested, personally, in multiple pipelines in the United States, Brazil, and other parts of the world. All these people care about is power and money, and for you to have less of it so you're easier to control. The whole Doug Ford coming out to Alberta to, quote, show his support for our oil sector is the most ironic thing to watch, considering the fact that a few months back he was telling Alberta to shut off its oil shipments to the United States, which represents the overwhelming majority of Alberta's exports.
What do you make of Doug Ford's vow to cut off energy to the U.S. in the wake of the 25% tariff threats?
Well, let me be clear from the Alberta perspective. Under no circumstances will Alberta agree to cut off oil and gas exports. We don't support tariffs. I don't support tariffs on Canadian goods, and I don't support tariffs on U.S. goods, because all it does is make life more expensive for everyday Canadians and everyday Americans. So instead, we're taking a diplomatic approach, and we're meeting with our allies in the U.S. We're making the case for Alberta oil and gas to be part of the solution to energy affordability, to energy security, and to, generally speaking, North American defense security as well. And of course, we'll work with our counterparts in Montana in a shared border arrangement so that we can improve public safety, crack down on illegal migrants and illegal drug trafficking.
All right, thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Special thanks to those of you who have donated to this project. It is much appreciated, and it helps me continue making videos. See you on the next one. Peace.